My name is Miranda Keeling, and I'm going to talk to you about detail. I joined Twitter because of the riots. I live in Tottenham, and they were coming close, and I was in my house and I was on my own, and I was scared. And I'd never been on any form of social media at all at this point. I wasn't on Facebook or anything like that. And so I had no idea how this type of communication worked. And it was really interesting. On Twitter were real people with real observations in real time. And then the riots ended. And I stayed on Twitter. And I tried to interact with it. I used to post things like, "Hi, I'm in a play," or "I've written this thing," or "Hi, I saw your play and it was really good." And I was boring myself. And I found Twitter was quite a lonely place. It was like being at a massive party where everybody is having really wonderful conversations and you don't really know how to interact with that. So I was like, I'm leaving. That's it. And I was sitting in my house in Tottenham, and I went out into the garden, and I just sort of noticed this moment in front of me, and it was that my solar lamp was looking really nice on the garden table. And I found myself writing something like, "I'm sitting in my quiet nighttime garden, lit by the softly soothing glow of my solar lamp, lovely." And there was this little flurry of responses, "That's nice," and I can just picture it, and stuff like that. And so I didn't leave Twitter. And I stayed on, and I started observing things. Things like this. A woman in a blue polka dot dress with a white belt holds a bunch of red roses as she waits for a coffee in a sunlit cafe in Hackney. A man, taking a break from some sort of conference in Aldwych, starts looking at the rain. A name tag on his suit jacket says, "Unknown." Woman in Elephant and Castle. They've closed the 99p shop. Man, "Oh no, what's it now?" Woman, "A pound shop." Man, "Not as good." Woman, "No." And sometimes I'd sort of put myself in the observations, in the sense that you could tell I was watching or I was kind of commenting. A strap from my rucksack gently taps the back of my leg in the wind, like the persistent attempts of a small ghost to get my attention. A woman on the platform watches an incoming train as if she's never seen anything so amazing in her life. And then I realise she's yawning. A tourist stands at my local tube station where the ticket office was. I remember the smiley lady there who would have answered his questions. I begin bringing a notebook with me everywhere I go. So when I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking about my background. I used to be a glassmaker. I have a degree in glassmaking, and I used to make small sculptures like this one. And I would make these sculptures from recycled glass that was kind of abandoned by other makers. And when I cut into them and polished them up, they would have these universes within them. So I've always noticed the details. And sometimes people notice me noticing them, like this little girl. A girl on the bus angles her arm, so in the window reflection, a shiny gold button on her coat sleeve becomes an earring on a big burly man. A man on the bus hugs a brown parcel to himself, forgets he has it, looks sad, discovers it, breaks into a smile, hugs it again, and repeats. A cyclist pulls to a sharp stop along the canal, the honk squeal of his brakes causing the nearby geese to accept him as one of their own. I've always loved haiku, and my work isn't haiku, but it's very much inspired by that kind of economy. And haiku poems are small and compact and jewel-like. And Twitter kind of lends itself to that kind of form. It's 140 characters. You can't bang on and on about something. You have to get to the point. And I find those constraints really useful. I'm going to read you 3 of my favorite haiku. White caps on the bay, a broken signboard banging in the April wind. Richard Wright. Sudden shower in the empty park, a swing still swinging. Margaret Chula. Don't worry, spiders. I keep house casually. Robert Hass. Sometimes I add captions to photographs that I've taken. An ordinary pavement becomes an upside-down underworld beneath the flowing marble of an oil and water sunset sky. I start getting people writing to me about them. So about how they feel about them. Anika Clark tells me she is more mindful of her surroundings and noticing the little joys. Eleanor Ann writes that she's observing the extraordinary in the ordinary. I'm managing to get Christchurch Pom to Miss London, and Bike Shoulder Doc tells me that his walks across the common have become a revelation. And people start sending me their observations of what they're seeing. And sometimes people write to me and say, "You're making it up, it didn't happen." Now, some of my observations are not in real time. Some of them are from my notebook. Some of them are archival ones that I like and I'm doing again. Some of the conversations and overhearings are friends and colleagues. And they've said, yes, you can tweet that if I'm anonymous. But mostly, it is incredible if you just... I take my notebook into a cafe and I sit and I just listen and I just watch. And it's happening all around me. And it's not a London thing. I mean, these things happen everywhere. I've got family in the northeast, so I want to read you a couple from Durham and York. I was there recently. A little boy in a pub in Durham absolutely collapses into peals of laughter every time he looks at his plate of chips. At York Station, a man in day-glow trainers strides past a statuesque woman with fake flowers in her hair and general disapproval on her face. Then there's one from Brighton Station. A little boy refuses to get onto the train at Brighton Station until his family agree to refer to him as the most beautiful of Helens. I love that boy. This one that's coming up is from Brooklyn. My family are from Brooklyn, and I was there in the summer. A woman in a baseball cap gazes at a laptop in a Brooklyn cafe, her arm in a cast on which has been written, "Things are sometimes shit." And then I tweet, teenager on a train. I'm not a feminist. Her mum. Do you want to own things and decide who you sleep with? Teen, yeah. Her mum, you're a feminist. And I get supportive messages, I get confused messages, I get messages from men saying, I think I'm a feminist. I get angry feminist messages. And then people start writing to me and saying, can we come with you round London? We can all bring notebooks and just sort of walk around observing stuff. And then someone says, how about we both observe the same thing and write down what we observe and see what happens. And so we're in Hackney at the time, we're near a council estate, there's a lawn on the council estate, there's a leather chair and it's fallen over on its side and its stuffing's coming out and it's surrounded by weeds and in those weeds are flowers. And we both write down something that we've observed. And when we read those observations back, we've both compared this image to a fallen soldier in a field of poppies. And so I get really interested in the people behind the tweets. And so I write down on Twitter, I'd really like it if occasionally I could see everybody's tweets in their actual handwriting. And people started sending me their handwritten tweets. Loads of them. And there's something incredible about them. I start a hashtag, handwrite your tweet. It's my first hashtag. It's my only hashtag. And so people have written, this is my best handwriting. Hello there's been written with ketchup on a napkin. Somebody else, you can see the C beyond their writing, and it's really lovely. So then, I think because of this, I'm contacted by Ian Macmillan, who's a poet, and he says, will you please come to Newcastle and be part of The Verb, which is a programme he runs for Radio 3. And I am a massive fan of Ian Macmillan's. So this is like a big deal for me. So I go up to Newcastle, and he says, we're going to walk along two sides of the Tyne, and we're going to tweet what we observe, and then at the end, we'll read them out, which we do. And I think the relationship is kind of interesting. I write, a man stands by a tower block in a white uniform, a jazzy gold lanyard round his rather substantial neck as smoke rises from his cigarette. And Ian says, I stood here with my grandson 2 years ago, and he posed for a photo with an Olympic torch. A pigeon listens to me tweeting. Sunlight falls across the face of a woman at a bus stop, and she smiles as if solar-powered. In some ways, I suppose she is. Man explaining something to his children as they pass. You see, it's all about the space-time continuum. And we call the project Tweet Off on the Tyne. Back in London, I write this tweet. A woman on the tube, her beautiful silver hair cascading in waves over her vivid red cape, nods to herself as she reads a book about tigers. And somebody who follows me, Welbeck Kane, he illustrates that tweet and he sends it to me. And I love it. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's a one-off, and that's nice. And then people start sending me their illustrations of my tweets. And I don't know why. And people think that nobody else is doing it. And they keep coming in, and they're not doing it because I've asked them to, and they're not doing it because I'm paying them, and they're not doing it to reach an audience, because I really haven't got any followers at this point, so they're not going to. They're doing it because they want to do it. So this is one from Neil Pettifer, and here's the tweet that he was illustrating. A lady with red hair and a daffodil brooch sits down in Soho Square, opens her lunchbox and smiles, delighted at what she has made herself. This is Christy Moore. A bright red-coated woman is shouting down the phone about psychic ability whilst holding under her arm a small golden syrup-coloured dog. Rob Doyle. A businessman in a slate-grey turban sleeps on the tube, his marvellously mustachioed face crumpled into his made-like-a-pillow palm. And this one is sent to me by Sarah O'Leary. She has a young son, and she was reading out a tweet to him of mine, and he drew this picture. The tweet is, a little boy in a stripy jumper on the bus. Dad? His dad, yes. Little boy smiling. This is the best life I've ever had. This is Trevor Updegrove. A man walks across Waterloo Bridge, hugging an old rolled-up newspaper to his chest and muttering soothingly to it, it's okay, it's okay. I begin collecting them and putting them on my website so that I have a record and so that other people can see them. This is Marion Dowling. A woman carries a very little sleeping baby through Dalston in a teeny tiny red hat made to look like a perfect woolen strawberry. A very smartly dressed businesswoman has just sped past me down the pavement on a rather small, metallic, pink child scooter. That was P. Bruton. A very little girl holds an enormous handmade pink paper crown on her head with both hands as the wind tries its hardest to blow it off. This next one was illustrated by 3 different people. I don't know why. This is one of them. A little boy works hard to draw his dad's attention to something exciting he's seen on the pavement, which turns out to be 5 peanuts. And then here's another one from Welbeck Kane. A lady pretends she isn't reading the book of a man beside her on the bus who pretends he isn't holding it, so it's easier for her to do so. Made me smile. And they keep coming, and there's just so many. So what I write on Twitter isn't always like whimsical and lovely, because I live in London and I live in the world and I see all kinds of things. And sometimes I write darker things. And some of my followers are like, yeah, we like that. And most of them are like, please don't do that. Life is very stressful. I follow your Twitter so that I can have a little bit of joy. So I do find that mostly I tweet things that make me smile or make me go, oh, that's weird. I didn't mean to, but in looking at the details, I think I've realized that I'm sometimes illustrating a larger picture, from feminism to a fallen soldier, and that the microcosm has a larger echo. And people can choose to interpret that echo in any way that they want to, that relates to them. So I feel like what I'm trying to do is notice a moment and observe it, and then find a meaningful way to express it, to go from something solo to something shared. Thank you.